On a dazzling Christmas night wrapped in lights, laughter, and fake perfection, she stands silently at the edge of the grand hall, holding her two little children close, while her husband proudly sits beside the woman tearing her dignity apart. Everyone laughs. Everyone whispers. Everyone thinks she is weak, ordinary, forgettable. But what no one knows is that the woman they're humiliating carries a power bigger than all their arrogance combined. Tonight, the truth of who she really is will shatter pride, flip destinies, and rewrite every single life in this room. Before the world would ever whisper her name with shock and disbelief, Evelyn lived like a gentle breeze, felt deeply but rarely noticed. She chose softness in a world obsessed with noise. She preferred quiet dresses over diamonds, warm smiles over loud opinions, and peace over attention. People mistook her silence for weakness. They didn't know silence can also be strength and kindness can be power. Evelyn was the kind of woman who woke before sunrise just to prepare breakfast with love. The kind who kissed her children's foreheads as if every moment with them was sacred. She carried warmth in her eyes, grace in her voice, and a strength inside her that no humiliation had ever been able to break. Her past was wrapped in unanswered questions. She had grown up without a father, only mysterious letters arriving every year on her birthday, and signed, yet written with deep affection and hidden sorrow. She never knew why. She just learned to accept life as it came, quietly, bravely. One winter afternoon, she sat on the floor with her twins as they sorted old toys to donate. "But Mama, these are our favorites," her little son protested. Evelyn smiled gently. "Exactly," she whispered. "Giving kindness only matters when it costs you something." Her daughter hugged her tightly, eyes shining. "So kindness is like a superpower?" Evelyn smiled, brushing their hair lovingly. "No, sweetheart, patience is. Strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply endures." And she did endure, through loneliness, through disrespect, through silent tears no one saw, holding her world together with invisible courage. Everyone in her life overlooked her, but destiny never did. From the outside, Evelyn and Mark looked like the couple everyone admired. He had the polished smile, the confident handshake, the carefully rehearsed charm that made people nod in approval. He laughed loudly at business dinners, kissed Evelyn's cheek when eyes were watching, and spoke about family values like a proud hero of his own story. But walls hear the truth, and walls inside their home had heard silence for years. Behind closed doors, the warmth faded. Mark had mastered the art of being present in the room, while never truly being there. His chair at the dining table stayed occupied, but his heart stayed somewhere far away. Conversations turned into short replies. Compliments disappeared. Arguments weren't shouted. They were swallowed into long, cold silences that hurt far worse than words ever could. Evelyn tried, again and again. She adjusted herself to his moods. She learned to read the tone in his footsteps. She learned when to speak less, when to smile anyway, when to hold the house steady, even when love wasn't holding it together. She let go of her dreams one by one like petals drying and falling quietly onto the ground. She once wanted to open a small children's arts center, a warm place where little hands could paint messily and hearts could heal slowly. Mark laughed at the idea. "Art doesn't pay bills. Focus on something real," he had said, scrolling his phone while speaking, not bothering to look at her. So she folded the dream away. He never noticed. He never noticed when she started eating last after everyone else. He never noticed when she stayed up late fixing things, only to smile like nothing hurt the next morning. He never noticed when her laughter became softer, then rarer, then mostly silent. But the world noticed Mark. They always do notice men like him. They saw his sharp suits, his expensive watch, his powerful aura. Women admired him. Men respected him. Friends envied him. He was successful, admired, the perfect husband in society's storybook. No one cared enough to see the cracks, because cracks in a man wrapped in money and confidence are never taken seriously. And cracks in a quiet woman's heart, those are almost always ignored. until Sienna appeared. Sienna, beautiful, bold, glossy like a magazine cover come alive. She didn't enter Mark's world politely. She walked into it like she belonged there. Too confident, too fluent in his routines, too comfortable with his space. She laughed a little too freely at his jokes. She knew too much about his business trips. She spoke to him not like an acquaintance, but like a woman already secured in a throne no one told Evelyn had existed. Evelyn noticed details, not because she was suspicious, but because life had trained her to observe quietly. The first time she saw Sienna touch Mark's arm, it wasn't the touch that hurt. It was the way Mark didn't move away, the way he allowed it like it was natural, like it belonged there. Their conversations slowly changed. Mark became more dismissive, more impatient, more easily irritated by Evelyn's gentle questions. The same questions he once found sweet. Stop being so sensitive. You're overthinking. Not everything is about you. Simple words. Sharp knives. Sometimes, late at night, Evelyn lay awake staring at the ceiling while Mark turned away from her in bed. The space between them felt colder than winter. She wasn't a woman insecure about beauty. She wasn't afraid of losing to another woman. What broke her wasn't jealousy. It was betrayal dressed in silence. Sienna began appearing everywhere. At parties, at charity events, at places Mark went for business. Always smiling, always shining like someone who believed she had already won. One afternoon, Evelyn walked into Mark's office unexpectedly with lunch she had lovingly prepared. She stood quietly at the door for a moment. Sienna was sitting in his office chair, laughing, too relaxed, far too familiar. Mark didn't even look embarrassed. He simply said, "You should have called before coming." Sienna smiled politely, but not respectfully. That smile wasn't for Evelyn. It was a declaration. Evelyn held onto her dignity like a queen wearing invisible armor. She placed the lunch on his desk, smiled gently, and simply said, "I thought maybe something homemade would remind you what home feels like." She left before tears could betray her strength. That night, she sat at the edge of her bed while her children slept peacefully. She brushed her daughter's hair with trembling hands and fixed her little son's blanket like she always did. She kissed him softly, whispering, "Mama's here. Mama's always here." Because no matter how broken she felt, their world still needed warmth. And Evelyn refused to let their childhood feel the cold she endured. People think women cry because they're weak. No, women like Evelyn cry because they are holding too much and still don't let it spill over the ones they love. She didn't confront Mark with yelling or accusations. She didn't curse Sienna's name. She didn't throw plates or slam doors. She did something far stronger. She stayed calm. She stayed graceful. She watched, listened, and endured. Because when a woman knows something is breaking, she doesn't immediately burn the house down. She stands still long enough to understand how deep the cracks go. But destiny has a strange way of rewarding quiet strength. While Mark believed he was winning power, he was actually walking toward the greatest shock of his life. While Sienna smirked with arrogant confidence, thinking she had defeated Evelyn, she had no idea she was standing in front of a storm far greater than her pride could comprehend. Evelyn wasn't just a wife being disrespected. She wasn't just a woman being overshadowed. She wasn't just someone quietly tolerating pain. She was a daughter of a man the world whispered about. A man whose name would soon shake every person who would dare to treat her as less. And when truth finally rises, it doesn't knock. It enters like destiny. It happened on an ordinary afternoon, the kind that pretends to be harmless. The sky was quiet, the house peaceful, the children laughing in the other room. And then Evelyn's phone rang. A strange number. No name, no identity, just a silent invitation to something unknown. For a few seconds, the world seemed to hold its breath. Evelyn stared at the screen, her heart whispering an unease she couldn't explain. She hesitated, then let it ring, until the call slipped into voicemail. She didn't open it. She didn't want to. Life had already been heavy. She didn't need another storm. Or maybe she wasn't ready to face a truth she didn't yet understand. Moments later, a voicemail notification blinked on her screen. One small symbol, but it felt strangely powerful. She placed the phone aside. Not now. Not today. She told herself it was probably nothing. A bank, a mistake, a random call from nowhere, just like the many unknown things life had thrown at her. But some things don't arrive by accident. They arrive like destiny, gently knocking, waiting, patient, but impossible to ignore forever. That evening, the house wasn't peaceful anymore. Mark came home in a rush, the scent of luxury cologne and impatience filling the air before he did. He loosened his tie aggressively, tossed his coat onto the sofa like the house was a hotel staff for his convenience, and poured himself a drink without greeting Evelyn properly. He didn't even ask how she was. He never did anymore. Instead, his sharp, businesslike voice cut through the room. Remember the Christmas event on Saturday. Don't do anything dramatic. Evelyn paused, stunned. Dramatic? She repeated softly. Yes, he snapped, turning to face her with irritation instead of warmth. You know how important that evening is. Influential people will be there. People who matter. I don't want you being overly emotional or drawing attention. Stay composed. Just smile, stand where you should stand, and don't embarrass me. He said it casually, coldly, as if it were logical, as if she were a burden he needed to manage. Something inside Evelyn stung, then burned. Embarrass him? Her? The woman who stayed when everyone else would have walked away? The woman who raised his children lovingly while he chased admiration from strangers? The woman who sacrificed every dream so he wouldn't stumble? But she didn't react. She swallowed the pain the way she always did. I'll be fine, she replied gently. You don't have to worry. He didn't even thank her. He never did. Instead, he checked his watch and said something that made everything inside her tighten. Sienna will be there too. Don't make things awkward. Silence fell like glass breaking silently across the room. He didn't say it carefully. He didn't consider her feelings. He didn't hide it anymore. He said it like a king issuing permission to his mistress, while his wife stood only as decoration. And then, as if summoned by arrogance itself, Sienna entered their home. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. She walked into Evelyn's house like she belonged there, heels tapping against the floor like a victorious rhythm. Sienna's smile was slow, confident, the kind of smile a woman wears when she believes life is hers to command. Hope I'm not interrupting, she said sweetly, a tone dipped in poison. Mark's face lit up in a way it never did for Evelyn anymore. You're right on time, he said warmly, guiding Sienna inside, as if she was the one who owned the space Evelyn had turned into a home. Sienna glanced around, assessing the room like an inspector of lives she believed she owned. She placed her purse on the table without asking. She walked further in too comfortably, too boldly. Evelyn watched quietly. Nice place, Sienna said casually, running her fingers across the furniture Evelyn had chosen, the walls Evelyn had decorated, the life Evelyn had built. Then she turned her gaze toward Evelyn, not with kindness, with superiority. You should consider changing the decor, though, she added lightly, smirking. It feels small. Mark didn't defend his wife. He didn't stop Sienna. He didn't even flinch. He simply sighed and said, I've told Evelyn that before. She likes sentimental things, like family, like memories, like love, small things to him, everything to her. The disrespect wasn't loud. It didn't scream. It dripped slowly, like poison dissolving dignity. Sienna didn't stop there. She sat comfortably on the couch, Mark's couch, crossing her legs gracefully, as if she had replaced Evelyn already, as if she wasn't breaking a marriage, but rightfully taking possession of something she believed she deserved. Her perfume filled the room. Her voice filled the silence. Her presence attempted to erase Evelyn. But Evelyn didn't shatter. She stood steady, calm, graceful, yet suddenly aware of something stirring inside her. A strength that had slept quietly for too long, now slowly beginning to open its eyes. Her children peeked around the corner, sensing tension but not understanding it. Evelyn smiled gently at them, shielding their innocence the way she always did. She refused to let bitterness touch them. Then, when Mark and Sienna were busy whispering and laughing like the world was theirs, Evelyn quietly stepped away, into her room, into silence, into herself. She finally picked up her phone. The voicemail waited. So patient, so heavy. Her heart beat harder than it had in years as she pressed play. A calm, professional voice filled the air. Good afternoon. This message is for Evelyn Wright. I'm calling regarding urgent matters connected to the estate of Mr. Adrian Pierce. It is crucial that you contact us immediately. We believe you may be directly connected and entitled to a formal disclosure. The world stopped. She felt dizzy, breath shallow, heart trembling. Adrian Pierce. Her mother had whispered that name only once in life, then buried it beneath silence. Evelyn had grown up hearing only the echo of a missing father and receiving letters that never revealed enough truth. Her hands trembled. Estate. Formal disclosure. Urgent. This wasn't nothing. This was everything. She looked toward the living room, where Mark and Sienna laughed like rulers of her world. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel helpless. She didn't feel afraid. She felt awake. She listened to the voicemail again. Fully, carefully. Her father. Secrets. Inheritance. Identity. Pieces of questions she carried all her life suddenly flickered with potential answers. She leaned back slowly, tears welling, not from sadness, but from overwhelming realization. Maybe her life wasn't built on weakness. Maybe endurance wasn't all fate expected of her. Maybe destiny had been quietly building something powerful behind every moment she thought she was forgotten. Outside, Sienna laughed loudly again. Mark's voice followed, amused, shameless. But for the first time, their voices didn't pierce Evelyn. They echoed like distant noise belonging to people who no longer owned her story. She closed her eyes. That voicemail wasn't just a message. It was a door leading somewhere powerful, somewhere truthful, somewhere her worth wasn't questioned but recognized. Inside her chest, something rose. Strength, identity, fire. She wasn't just enduring anymore. She was preparing. And though no one in that house knew it yet, a storm wrapped in grace had begun to move. Something big was coming. And when it arrived, no one who disrespected Evelyn would ever stand the same again. Christmas had painted the city in gold. The grand ballroom shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers, every corner wrapped in luxury, laughter, and the quiet arrogance that only power can breathe into a room. Soft music floated through the air. Expensive perfume mingled with the scent of polished wood and fresh pine wreaths. Cameras flashed. Champagne glasses clinked. Every guest wore confidence like a crown. Tonight wasn't just a celebration. It was a parade of wealth, influence, and carefully curated pride. Mark loved this world, the world of importance. He thrived in it. He walked through the hall, greeting powerful men like equals and nodding to influential women as if they were fortunate to know him. His smile gleamed brighter than the lights. His voice carried authority. He was in his element, but beside him wasn't his wife. He chose his ornament of pride tonight. Sienna. She stood beside him like victory wrapped in glittering fabric. Her dress sparkled like she owned the night. Her hand rested possessively on Mark's arm. Her laughter flowed with practiced sweetness. People whispered around them, curious, entertained, approving in a shallow way society sometimes approves the wrong things. And then, like a soft shadow surrounded by fireworks, Evelyn entered the room, not with noise, not with grand entrance, not with announcement, just grace. She wore a simple dress, soft, elegant, almost out of place among the jeweled gowns around her. There were no diamonds around her neck, no designer logo on her purse, no loud proof that she belonged here. But she carried something far rarer, dignity. Her twins held her hands, eyes widening at the giant Christmas tree glittering with thousands of lights. They gasped with innocent wonder. She smiled for them, even as her heart ached with a quiet heaviness only she could feel. The room noticed her, then ignored her, just like always. She walked slowly through the hall, staying away from the center, staying near the shadows, where unnoticed hearts usually survive. And then she saw it. Mark, laughing, radiant, alive in a way he never was with her anymore. Sienna beside him, glowing with pride, confident, possessive, comfortable like a queen beside her king. Evelyn's heart didn't break loudly. It cracked silently like ice beneath heavy footsteps. As she approached, conversations around them softened. Eyes shifted, whispers slithered through the air. That's the wife. She still comes? Awkward. Mark noticed her then. For half a second, guilt flickered in his eyes, then vanished beneath ego. He didn't stand to greet her, didn't reach out, didn't welcome her into his presence. He simply nodded stiffly, like she was a distant relative, not his wife. And Sienna smiled, not kindly, triumphantly. "Oh," she exclaimed loudly enough for nearby ears to hear. "You made it. I wasn't sure you'd be confident enough to come." The words slid into the air like knives decorated in glitter. Mark didn't stop her. He didn't defend Evelyn. He didn't even frown. Instead, he let the humiliation bloom. Evelyn swallowed the sting, forcing a gentle smile. "It's Christmas. My children deserve happiness." Sienna leaned in, pretending sympathy. Of course, children should enjoy these things, though environments like this can be overwhelming for them. So many important people, so much pressure. Hopefully, they don't embarrass anyone. Mark chuckled. That laugh cracked something inside Evelyn more deeply than any insult. Around them, people watched, some with pity, some with entertainment, some with curiosity, no one with courage to intervene. Society rarely defends the quiet. Then came the moment that burned. A member of the organizing committee approached, smiling brightly. "We'll be seating everyone shortly. Spouses and partners together, please." The woman's gaze shifted, first to Mark, then to Evelyn, then to Sienna. For a second, even she was confused. Mark cleared his throat and placed his hand firmly over Sienna's. "Sienna will be sitting with me tonight," he said confidently, loudly, leaving no space for misunderstanding. Silence fell for a moment, a silence so sharp it hurt to breathe in it. People pretended not to stare, but they did. Everyone did. And Evelyn stood there, a wife being replaced publicly. Not quietly, not secretly, but shamelessly. The humiliation wasn't hidden anymore. It was displayed like a cruel ornament for the night. Before anyone could say more, Sienna leaned gently toward Evelyn, her voice sweet, her words venom. "Why don't you sit somewhere quieter?" she suggested. "Maybe in the back. You know, somewhere more suitable." Suitable. A word chosen like a bullet. Evelyn tightened her fingers around her children's hands. For a heartbeat, her vision blurred. Not because she was weak, but because moments like this test even the strongest hearts. She nodded softly. "Of course," she whispered, "because dignity doesn't scream when crushed, it stands." She turned away. With her twins beside her, she walked toward the far corner tables. Away from lights, away from applause, away from where pride sat crowned beside betrayal. They were given a small table, tucked near the back, almost hidden behind a floral arrangement. It didn't matter to the children. Their eyes still sparkled at the decorations. They giggled about cookies and Christmas magic. They didn't feel the cruelty of seating charts. But Evelyn did. She sat quietly, her heart trembling. She watched Mark bask in admiration, watched Sienna glow beside him like victory, watched powerful people toast to success, unaware or uncaring of the injustice breathing in the same room. Her eyes dropped to her lap, and for a moment, she felt small. Then something unexpected happened. A staff member gently placed a thick, leather-bound guest directory on her table by mistake. "Apologies, ma'am. I'll come collect this shortly," he said politely before hurrying away. Evelyn glanced at it absent-mindedly, then paused. Something tugged at her heart. Slowly, she opened it. Pages filled with names, business leaders, politicians, international figures, people whose words could move economies, whose signatures could redirect futures. She turned pages casually at first. Then she froze. Her breath caught. Her hand trembled. Her heart stopped. There, printed in elegant font, right in front of her, Adrian Pierce Foundation, board executives and family trustees invited. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Pierce, her father's name, the name from the voicemail, the name wrapped in unanswered questions her entire life. Her eyes scanned faster, and then she saw another line. reserve in honor of Evelyn Wright Pierce, primary legal heir. Her world didn't just shift, it exploded silently. Her name, connected to his legacy. In this room, suddenly, the chandeliers felt different. The decor looked different. The room itself felt different. This wasn't Mark's world. This wasn't Sienna's world. This wasn't the empire of arrogant pride. This room belonged to her blood. Her father's influence filled these walls long before Mark ever pretended to matter. The guests Mark tried desperately to impress, they weren't his circle. They were her inheritance's circle. They didn't know him because of his worth. They knew him because destiny had placed him beside her. Her throat tightened. Tears filled her eyes, not from pain this time, from awakening. Suddenly, conversations around her sounded different. She heard whispers, fragments of respect drifting from nearby guests. Adrian Pierce's family representative is here tonight. Such an untouchable legacy. I heard his heir finally surfaced. Their admiration wasn't pointed toward Mark. It was floating toward the unknown heir. Toward her. And then, the room shifted further. A distinguished gentleman approached the center of the hall with a microphone, calling for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor one of the greatest visionaries the world has known, the late Adrian Pierce. His legacy of power, compassion, and strength lives on, and tonight his rightful heir is among us. The hall erupted with applause. People stood. Respect filled the room like light. Evelyn's heart pounded against her ribs. Every breath felt impossible. Her world, her story, her very identity was no longer small, no longer overlooked, no longer ordinary. She lifted her gaze, and, for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, valued, whole. Her heartbreak transformed. Her silence shifted. Her endurance became power. Across the room, Mark laughed, unaware. Sienna basked in attention, unaware. Everyone continued celebrating, unaware that the woman they had pushed into the shadows was the very reason this room shimmered with importance tonight. Evelyn straightened slowly in her chair. Her shoulders relaxed. Her chin lifted. Her eyes glowed, not with tears, with strength. She reached for her children's hands, kissing them softly. "Stay close to Mama," she whispered gently. "Something beautiful is happening." The girl who once endured quietly was no longer just a woman holding on. She was the storm destiny had patiently been waiting to reveal. And the night was far from over, because when truth finally stands, every lie trembles. The applause softened, and then the room shifted. Faces turned. Conversations paused. Curiosity filled the air like electricity. The host continued speaking, voice steady, reverent, powerful. "Tonight, we are deeply honored because the rightful heir of Adrian Pierce, the man whose quiet brilliance shaped countless lives, whose power changed nations, whose legacy still protects businesses, charities, and families around the globe, is here among us." Eyes swept the room, searching, wondering, waiting, and then the spotlight slid gently across the hall and stopped on Evelyn. For a heartbeat, the room forgot how to breathe. People gasped. Hands covered mouths. Respect straightened postures instantly. The invisible wife. The quiet nobody. The woman in the back with her children. Suddenly, she wasn't background anymore. She was everything. Whispers rippled like a wave of stunned realization. "That's her. Adrian Pierce's daughter. She's the heir. She owns the legacy." Mark turned slowly, his confident smile collapsing. His throat tightened. His world, built on ego and illusion, shattered in a single heartbeat. Color drained from his face. The man who always felt larger than life suddenly felt painfully small. Beside him, Sienna's arrogance dissolved instantly. Her breath hitched. Her poise vanished. The sparkle on her dress meant nothing now. Her confidence, once towering, trembled like fragile glass. Because now they knew, the woman they humiliated was the daughter of a man whose power stretched across continents. A man whose empire dwarfed everything Mark had ever dreamed of. A man who had silently protected industries while the world slept. And she, The quiet wife he disrespected, the gentle mother he ignored, was his true successor. The host extended his hand toward Evelyn from across the room. Ladies and gentlemen, please honor the legacy of Adrian Pierce and his daughter, Evelyn Pierce Wright. The room erupted, not with casual applause, with reverent applause, standing applause, respectful applause, the kind of applause reserved for legends. Evelyn stood slowly, not with pride, not with revenge, not with gloating triumph, with dignity. Her children squeezed her hands, eyes wide with awe and innocence. She kissed their foreheads gently, then walked forward, through the same crowd that once overlooked her, now parting with admiration and shameful humility. People bowed their heads as she passed. Respect wasn't requested. It simply came. She reached the center of the hall. The microphone waited. Silence embraced the room. Evelyn's voice, when she spoke, wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. I was raised without my father, she began softly, but I was never without his love. He watched me from afar and gave me the greatest inheritance of all. Not wealth, not power, but strength, patience, integrity. She looked around gently. At times, the world may convince you that quiet people are weak, that those who endure silently deserve their pain. Tonight, I want to remind you, real strength doesn't humiliate. Real love doesn't disrespect. And real power, she smiled softly, doesn't need to shout. She didn't look at Mark to hurt him. She didn't look at Sienna in triumph. She simply stood above their cruelty by refusing to stand on it. And that hurt them more deeply than anger ever could. Mark lowered his gaze, swallowed by shame he could no longer ignore. Every arrogant moment flashed back, now stripped of power. He didn't lose Evelyn because she wasn't enough. He lost her because he never deserved her. Sienna's eyes filled, not with remorse, but the bitter realization that she had never been powerful. She was merely loud in a world that mistook noise for importance. Evelyn took a gentle breath. For my children, for every woman who has ever felt small, please remember, your worth isn't measured by how others treat you. Your value doesn't depend on their acceptance. Sometimes the quietest voice in the room carries the greatest destiny. The room bowed to her, not because she demanded it, because she earned it, without ever losing her grace. The unseen woman became the most important person in the room. The overlooked heart became the center of admiration. The silent soul became a symbol of true strength. Evelyn didn't need revenge. She already won, simply by knowing who she was. And that night, under the shimmering Christmas lights, the world finally saw what destiny always knew. Real power is gentle, real strength is quiet, and real worth is self-respect, asterisk, asterisk. Sometimes the quietest souls carry the loudest destinies. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one who can shift the course of lives. Evelyn never sought revenge. She never needed to prove herself. All she needed was the truth, and when it arrived, it stood beside her like a silent, unstoppable force. The world finally learned what she had always known. Kindness is not weakness, patience is not insignificance, and humility is never invisibility. In the end, it wasn't arrogance or loudness that commanded respect. It was integrity, grace, and the quiet courage to endure until the right moment came.